Hello, it's Davida here on Women, Wisdom and Wealth. On today's program, I got Grace Olugbodi with me, and I'll be introducing her in a few minutes' time. But before I do that, I'd just like to quickly share with you about the vision of Women, Wisdom and Wealth. Women, Wisdom and Wealth is part of Kingdom Wealth Creation. Kingdom Wealth Creation is a business ministry. It's a biz ministry, and the whole idea is that we connect God's people to God's resources for God's purposes. So Women, Wisdom and Wealth is an offshoot of that. We have another organization called KEEN, the Kingdom Economic Empowerment Network, and that's also an offshoot of Kingdom Wealth Creation. So this particular show is Women, Wisdom and Wealth, and this is our second episode. So welcome, thanks for joining us. Now, so for Women, Wisdom and Wealth, the vision is to empower women economically, empower women financially, and that's because if we think about the economic arena, we see that women are not as empowered as men, but what we'd find is that a lot of women end up being the breadwinners, or they're left with the children, or, probably it could be people who are single mothers. It could be that they're maybe divorce or separation. They end up with the children, and they have a lot of economic challenges or issues to deal with. So I believe that God has women on his mind, and he wants them to be empowered economically. So one of the reasons why he's laid this on my heart is because he cares about women, so he wants women to prosper. The first show we had, which was with Tamiko, a friend of mine, was Woman, God Wants You to Prosper. Now today's show is titled Woman, Get a Millionaire Mindset. And before I go into introducing my guests, I'll also mention how you can keep up to date with the things that we do on this particular show and in Kingdom Wealth Creation in general. You could go to my website. It's www.kingdomwealthcreation.com and subscribe to the mailing list. When you do that, you'll get an ebook, and that ebook is a great one. It's called Discover the Real Secrets, How to Make More Money while freeing up your time to live your God-given dreams. And I'm sure that's what most of you would want to do. You want to free up your time, you want to make more money, and you want to live your God-given dreams. So it's a real good ebook. I've had a lot of feedback, good feedback from it. So I'll just ask Grace to introduce herself. I'll tell you a bit about her before we start. We met at a networking event in my area in Essex. We both live in Essex in England, in the UK. And we met at a networking event, I think about 3 years ago now. And after that, we connected. And since then, our relationship actually has developed. What we found out as we got to know one another was that we knew one another's family. She knew my mom, I knew her uncles, so we kind of are connected from way back as well. But more recently, what we've done, we've become mastermind partners, and that's really been an exciting journey. Hopefully we'll be able to touch on a bit of that with you today. But I'll just go straight on to telling you a bit about Grace herself. So Grace she's an entrepreneur, an investor, and also she's an entrepreneur and investor, and she's also an inventor. She's invented a game called Race to Infinity. And basically her idea is to help children or parents make maths fun for their children. Helping parents make maths fun for their children. So she probably will tell you a bit more about that as we go along. And one of the reasons why I have invited her for this program is because she's a high achiever, and she's done quite a lot in her few years here on earth. She's done quite a lot. Grace is an ex-investment banker. She's won several awards. She won She was voted #1 in the Women Inspiring Women in National Awards. and she's won that particular award twice in the last 3 years in the business category. She also runs a successful dealership in health and nutrition. And she, like I said, she's a property investor with a multi-million pounds portfolio, property portfolio. Okay. I'm sure Grace would tell you about herself. She'll tell you a lot more about herself as we go along. Okay. So Grace, I'll open the floor to you. Can you just tell us as you start? Can you tell us about your entrepreneurial journey? How did you get into entrepreneurship? And I had a particular question for you. What made you leave your 9 to 5?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm so honored to be here. So thanks for having me. And I worked in investment banking, 9 to 5, of course, for many years. And I was in 5 different investment banking. I was programming, and I actually enjoyed my job. Unlike most people would say, I actually loved my job. I loved what I did, not the fact that I was having to wake up at a certain time, get to the city in a certain time, you know, rush to the trains, and, you know, I'd like get there 1 minute before, you know, just about jump in. Because, you know, the kids, you know, the husband, you know, everything that a woman normally has to do. So I then used to go to the city every day. On Friday nights, I'd be very happy. On Sunday nights, I'd be very sad, because it was time to go to work the next day. Never mind what I was doing in particular, which I actually loved. It is the fact that you're made to do. It's not having that freedom to be able to do what you want to do and having to answer to somebody every time. You can't do normal things. You can't answer the phone when you feel like it. You just couldn't do what you wanted to do. It was actually quite well paid. But one day I realized that nobody ever made it working for somebody. And I thought, you know, Bill Gates, I believe it was Bill Gates that said that when you have the right product at the right time and you key into it, then you run to something, you know. Don't quote me on that. It's something like that, you know. It's about having the right product, having the right, you know, and the right time, and then keying into it. So I decided that I had to do something, because just going there 9 to 5 every day wasn't going to cut it. I knew that for long. And even though it was very well paid, I was on a 6-figure income, I still always, every time my salary increased, I still always spent, you know, the money was still accounted for somehow, you know, and I always spent what I actually needed to, and it would just be just about what I was getting paid. And, you know, I was actually on a, you know, so 5-figure monthly and a 6-figure income. And even then it wasn't enough. There was always things that we needed to do more things for. So I thought I needed a way to have a little bit more control, do what I wanted to do, and have time and freedom, you know, to spend, you know, and also spend more time with my kids. At the time, I only had one, and he was 3. So one day I woke up and I said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. And I literally went and handed in my resignation. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Can you, you know, give me your brain or whatever? You can have it. You can have it. You can have everything. I just needed to be able to be in more control and be able to decide at the start of the month what I wanted to earn, really. And, you know, and I realized that if I put that time into my own, you know, my own passion or what I really wanted to do, that I would do a lot more. You know, the amount of time and the amount of work I was putting into somebody else's business, building their own business for them, I could do with putting that time and effort into myself and actually building something for myself. And that's why I left and resigned from investment banking. Yes, it was a risk. It was a bit of a jump. It was a calculated risk, I will say, because what I started to do then is, just before, about 1.5 years before actually leaving, I had started another little business on the side where I could call it my own business and be doing things for myself. So I kind of did things hand in hand for a while. For about 1.5 years, I didn't actually just wake up one morning and just hand in the resignation. Not like, I mean, I did, but I had it planned before then. And it was about working towards it to make sure that I would be able to replace that income with what I was going to go and do.
Okay. Thank you, Grace. I'll come back to that in a minute, but I'm going to pause the recording for a minute because I think people can't log on. I'm getting messages saying they can't log on, so I'm just going to check to see what's happening. So please bear with me. Okay, so thanks very much, Grace, for letting us know, telling us about how you became an entrepreneur. Yes, when I left my job in 2003, it's like I lost all desire. I became born again and I lost the desire to work in that sector. I was climbing the corporate ladder, but then all the desire just disappeared. I tried hard to stay within the job, but I wasn't able to. But eventually I left, you know, so it's interesting to see how you made that particular journey. Now, I'm going to ask you another question about your entrepreneurial journey, and that is what are the challenges? What have been the challenges you found being an entrepreneur?
Okay, so as an entrepreneur, of course, you work for yourself, which means that if you don't do the work, then nobody will. And it can be a lonely journey in that you need people around you who believe in what you're doing to support you. And you probably work harder. Initially, you would work harder than you do work in your 9 to 5, or that you had worked in your 9 to 5, because again,
Totally.
it's your vision, and you can't employ as many people as you know would have liked to employ at the beginning because of cash flow, because you've got to watch your cash flow. And if you don't do some of these things yourself, then you can't teach someone else to do it for you. So so those are some of the main challenges. It's that, first of all, you're pretty much on your own, especially initially. 2, you're on your own, not just working, but also in terms of believing in yourself and having that, brain behind you to support you with what you're doing. And 3rd is that you're going to be probably doing as much work, twice as much work as you were or are doing in your 9 to 5. But it's very rewarding. And there's a saying that says that it's only work when it's not something that you really want to do. But when you're doing what you love, you actually don't feel like it's work. So I love working all the time. I mean, I could work 24 hours a day, and that's because I love what I do. So those are some of the, so the challenges you can also turn around to actually be some of the good parts of being an entrepreneur.
I could see Valerie saying definitely work more, because one of the challenges I found really when it came to working for myself was waking up and not knowing what to do next. Some days you wake up and you wonder, oh God, I'm supposed to be working, but what am I supposed to do? So not having a boss, not having people telling you what to do, or kind of creating your schedule for you or your task for you can actually be daunting, because it's a lot of discipline when you end up becoming an entrepreneur. You have to really be self-disciplined, really. Leadership.
Yeah.
It's leadership. So that it entails a lot of leadership.
It does entail a lot of leadership, but the good thing about it is all of it is learnable, and nobody really had all the skills up front before they actually left their job and started being an entrepreneur. It's learnable, and some of it is common sense in that you will realize then you've slept today, you've slept the next day, and then the day after you realize that, hang on a minute, who's going to do the work if you're not there doing it? And this is all usually when you start out, because later on there's there's delegation, there's leveraging and all of that stuff. But when you first start out, you're going to have to do, just as Valerie said, a bit more work and have to be disciplined, just like Davida said, in terms of what you're going to do every day. And there's a really simple way, I think, to solve that problem. But I'll wait until we get there and I'll talk about that.
Okay. So now let's go into the topic for today. Let's go further into the topic. I know it's a live cast. It's a show for entrepreneurs, Christian entrepreneurs, especially women. And we've spoken about being an entrepreneur, but today's particular show has to do with money. It has to do how we think about money. It has to do with financial independence. It has to do with having a millionaire's mindset. So what is financial independence? Let's start with the definition of financial independence.
Okay.
How would you define financial independence? Mm-hmm.
Right. The way that I define financial independence is somewhat different from what, I mean, there are different interpretations of what people would term or deem as financial independence. But what I deem as financial independence is wanting to do something and not having to worry about where that money will come from. So being able to decide to do when you want. To do what you want when you want, and knowing that you have the resources to do it. That's what I would call financial independence.
Okay, very interesting. Probably I would come not from a totally different angle, but probably looking at it in terms of your goals, because financial independence is different from for each person.
That's correct.
You know, what it would take for you to be financial independent would be different from what it would take me to be financially independent. You know, so we need to look at our financial goals, the things we're trying to achieve. And then once we know our goals, then we work and that whatever the goal is financially is what it would take for us to be financially independent. And that has to do with, like Grace said, not having to worry where your money's going to come from. But you can only get to that point when you have assets. You know, when assets are making money for you, where you're no longer working for money, and you've spent a lot of time investing that money in the creation of assets, and the assets are now generating, you're getting a return on your investment from those assets, and you're able to live off the income from your assets rather than from the income that of your active work. You know, so financial independence, yes, has to do with creating assets and living off the income those assets rather than having to put time in and earning from the time that you're putting in. Okay. So I guess if you look at both of the things that we've said, I think that gives a broader picture of what financial independence is. Have you got anything else to add to that?
No, I was just sort of nodding along and saying, yeah. The only other thing I think I could have added to that is in terms of cash flow. So having the assets and having the income coming from that. Also, sometimes assets could be the sort of assets that could fluctuate. In which case, what we wouldn't want is really thinking that we're financially independent with certain types of assets. You know, there are different kinds of assets. There's property, there's stocks and shares, there's IP, intellectual property, like, you know, creating a product or creating even an online product is still a product, you know, and having cash flow come from that. But then if it's a kind of asset, that fluctuates, then financial independence in quote can disappear overnight if suddenly the stocks. So again, it's a bit broader than that, which is balancing it all out and making sure that everything sort of balances out. But yeah, I think.
So in talking about fluctuating assets, just give some examples of what you really mean. I know you mentioned stocks even now. Are there any other kind of assets that might fluctuate in that real sense? We know that probably a lot of the assets will fluctuate, but some more than others. So are there any particular ones that fluctuate a lot more than others?
Yes, I would say. I would say that stocks and shares would fluctuate more than property would. Having said that,
definitely.
Sorry?
I said definitely.
Definitely, yeah. But I would say that property too could. I imagine that all kinds of assets could fluctuate. It's just the degree. They fluctuate to varying degrees. So, for example, if you had gold, you know, and
the frequency as well.
Right.
The frequency fluctuation. Yeah.
Fluctuates, and that's where stocks and shares could fluctuate a lot more than things like property. Property. The last time I would say that property really. I mean, we have a portfolio of property, and in 2008, 2009, you know, almost crashed, and so what we then had was mortgages were more than the rents payments that we were actually receiving. So we, at one time, were paying £14,000 in mortgages for our property portfolio. And this was interest only. I haven't talked about the capital repayments. This is just the interest on the properties, were £14,000 a month. So, but then that switched after some years. And then it went the other way. So it was really good where the rents were a lot more and the interest went down. So that's an example of fluctuation, but that wouldn't happen on property, but would happen a lot more with stocks and shares. Again, there are ways to do stocks and shares. You know, if you had one of those fixed ones, then it wouldn't fluctuate as much, but then the returns wouldn't be as much as will be with the ones that fluctuate more because of the risk involved. Things like gold and silver, they don't fluctuate really anything close to the way that the others fluctuate. So those are just some common examples of assets. IP, so you might have a product where it's the in thing now, and everyone is looking for that product, and that could also disappear after a while. So again, that comes into the strategy of developing products and what kind of products you're trying to develop.
Okay. Yeah. So we spoke about financial independence. So we've done the definition of financial independence, but what is the reality of financial independence? Can a person truly become financially independent? What's the possibility? And probably maybe my second question would be, what is the route? What is a realistic route to getting there?
Well, of course, everyone can be financially independent if they want to be, because it does. If they want to be, yeah. If you want to be, yeah.
Start at any age?
Sorry?
Could a person start at any age?
Certainly.
When you mean everyone?
Sorry?
Okay. I said okay.
Yeah, certainly. Any age. I mean, we have the stories of all the people who started, Walmart, KFC, I believe they all started really late. So, I mean, that's not to say that you should start late or that I should start late. Of course, the sooner the better. There's a Chinese proverb that says that when's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. When is the next best time? It's now really. Yeah. So that can happen anytime, and anytime you can start as an entrepreneur to work towards financial independence. I'd say that the realities of it is that it doesn't just happen overnight. And I think as Christians, a lot of us over spiritualize everything, and we just hope that God will do it. And He will do it. But I always say there's an activator that God is always waiting for. And you're the activator. I'm the activator. So once we're ready to start, we start to do our part of it, because really faith without works is dead. So we start to do our part of it, which is what are the practical steps that start to take us towards it. And what I did, and I think what I would recommend for everyone also, is not to wake up one morning and say, that's it, goodbye, I'm leaving my job, but to do it strategically, planning to people who maybe have a little bit more experience than you have, and working out really a plan to building something on the side. Granted, it's harder than just doing 9 to 5 and not worrying about anything else. Granted, it is harder. But when you think about where you're going to, and the returns of what you get, and not just for you, but for your family as well, then it's really worth it, knowing that you are going to be working on what you love on the side. So, a few more hours a day than normal. You have to get up a little bit earlier. Forget about EastEnders and the usual stuff.
A bit later.
Exactly. The parties and they're gonna have to reduce.
Not. You select your friends carefully. You select your company carefully.
Very important, because when believe it or not, when you're going to start going another way, then your friends and family don't really want you to go that way, and they mean well. They just want you to be how you were. Normal. Just all of us. That's correct. Yeah, all of us be together as we've always been. There's that song that says that the more we're together, the happier we'll be. I'm not sure, because it's important to sometimes separate yourself to be able to go to where you're going to, if they're not going to go with you. That's key. So those are the realities. The friends, the fact that you have to work a little bit harder, build something from this, on the side initially while still working, making sure that you're still able to cover your monthly expenses for yourself, for your family. And it's about doing these things responsibly as well. You know,
Very true.
you know, when you've got children to look after or family to look after or home to look after, you can't just not plan things and just say, oh, I'm going for financial independence. It doesn't happen overnight either. That's a big reality about it. But it's doable.
Journey, like, okay, interesting. Something was coming to my mind as you were talking, and if I could just get it back now. Let me see. Yeah. Well, I can't. Probably would come back. Okay. Yes, but it's a journey, and like, yeah. But yeah, for me, I think what I realized, because it's an ideal to aspire to. It's an ideal that most people aspire to. You know, I want to become a millionaire, or I want to become financially independent. It's an ideal that most people aspire to. But one thing I realize is that most people don't plan for it. They don't have a strategy for it. We're not even talking about a strategy for getting a job, but a strategy for financial independence. And I believe that that is crucial and that is foundational in order to become financially free. You know, if you're becoming financially free and you're thinking of that, you need a financial goal, you need a financial plan, you need to know where you're going. You need to know what financial independence looks like, so you know when you get there. You need to know the vehicles that you're going to use to get there. That's so important. So for me, I think people can build castles in the air, but for me, my journey became more realistic when I created a plan. And the plan showed me the reality of my current financial situation, and it showed me what I needed to get to what I needed to do, and how much I needed to get to where I was trying to be. And I'm implementing that plan at the moment, and it's not an easy journey, like Grace said. I mentioned earlier that Grace and I are mastermind partners, and we're business partners as well. So, and Grace is so energetic. Say that again.
I said I'm stuck.
Who's stuck? You're stuck with me, or I'm stuck with you?
Stuck.
Okay. So Grace, I'm a minister. So I've got the ministry, and I've got an entrepreneurial cap on. So, but Grace is an entrepreneur. So her energy. Because sometimes it's moving for me. It's shifting between two things. But her energy, she's so energetic. She's so passionate about what she's doing that, most of the time, sometimes I feel as if I'm dragged along, especially when I've got my ministry cap on. But, it's all encouraging. So what I'm just trying to say there is that you do need the right people to make that journey with. If you're thinking of financial independence, and if you're thinking of really arriving at the right destination. Okay, so let's go to my next question.
Yeah, can I just quickly add that I think it's so important that you mentioned about the plan, and that's quite that's very key. I'm going to admit that I knew broadly what I wanted to try and achieve, and I think that, and this is where God's grace comes in and the blessing, because then even when you've erred in your ignorance of maybe creating a broad plan but not making it clear enough, then God's grace is sufficient for us. And it's not to do things knowingly, not when you should create a plan and make it clear, just sitting down and not wanting to do it and being sloppy about it, and that won't work, because we can't continue doing what we know is it right and then expect that grace is going to just support us. So I think that even though I had the broad plan, it could have gone wrong. It could have gone wrong, especially when we were paying a lot in mortgages, and it could have gone wrong. It was a big risk. I think we bought too many properties too quickly. So I kind of blame myself for that. I was kind of dragging my husband along, because he was like, well, we better slow down. I'm like, no, let's get more, and let's get more. And I think that it could have gone wrong. So thank God it didn't, but it's important. Looking back, that's one thing I would change. I mean, it's all gone well now, you know, and of course, yeah, we got to the, you know, accountant the other day and he was telling us, you know, what our net worth is and stuff, you know, just from properties. And it was really great to hear, but I was like, that's kind of accidental because I don't know if I really planned it like that, but I knew what vehicles were important to get into. So guys, if you're not in property, get into property. I would definitely
Yeah,
highly recommend property.
Yeah, I do believe properties is an easier vehicle for most people because you don't have to keep on watching it. If you're on the stocks and shares, if you're into stocks and shares, it's an active. You have to be actively engaged with property. You do the work up front. It's fairly passive. It's not totally
Yeah.
passive. It's a fairly passive wealth creation vehicle. So it's a great one to get into at the right time. You need to look into the market and observe the market, learn about it, go on courses, and don't just invest in an area that you're not knowledgeable about. Learn about whatever you're trying to invest in, and then make your investment. Make an intelligent investment.
And
take an intelligent risk.
Yeah, and look, and I was going to say, and of course, look after the property. You know, you buy something, you've got to look after it as well,
Yes.
and it will yield. That's a
Yes.
that's a given for property.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things, it's good you mentioned that. One of the things that most people, or probably, I would say, probably a lot of the Black community are not so good at, is stewardship, stewarding what we have. But as we look at the parables that Jesus mentioned, it was it's as we steward what we have, it's multiplied. So we need to learn that there's an element of obtaining, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you are spearheading a lot of things. You want to spearhead, you want to start something new, you're into that challenge. However, there's also the managing of those things that you start. So if you're not a good manager, if you're one who spearheads and you're not one to maintain, you need to partner with somebody who's able to do that. So yes, maintenance and keeping an eye on the things you're investing in, or your business, whatever it is, wherever you invest your time, your money, your skills, you need to watch it and watch it grow. And one of the things we don't do is we allocate time. When we're planning our time, we allocate time to obtain those things, but we don't allocate the time to maintain, and that's where we get stressed out, because we haven't planned our time properly. We haven't thought of the longer term, what it requires to bring that particular investment. It could be a business to maturity. It could be a project, whatever it is. So we need to think of the time to start something off. There's a lot of time you put into something. You invest your time, but you also invest a lot of time in maintaining and bringing those things to maturity. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so let's look at, yes, my next question is, what would you say the key differences between having a working or middle class mindset and a millionaire mindset? Okay, so maybe we should do it this way. What is a working class mindset? Yes. Who would you classify as a working class, and what is the mindset? How would you define that mindset?
Yeah, okay. I've looked into this before, and because different people have different ways of defining this, I'm going to give you one definition that I've looked into before. I really liked that definition, so I saved it and I kept it, on my phone. Now, of course, we all know generally what working class, middle class, upper class, we all see it as, sort of how much you earn and the kind of the job you do. And there's no right or wrong answer. That actually is a definition that we can easily identify with and get really quickly. But I like this definition, and then I'll tie it into what everyone generally likes. So this person says it's the working class plans for a time frame from a week to a year. The plan they do is for a time frame of a week to a year. The lower middle class plans for a time frame from a month to a decade. So from a month to 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Lower middle class.
Right. That's the lower middle class. The upper middle class plans for a time frame from a quarter of a lifetime to a lifetime. So they plan for their whole 70, 80 years that they're going to live. A quarter would be about 20 years, let's say, give or take, say 17.5 to 20 years ahead. And then the upper class plan for their grandchildren's inheritance.
Wow.
And
wow.
Now look at those definitions. I thought they were quite exciting, and I thought they're very deep and
interesting.
Yeah, interesting, and makes a lot of sense. And and I was in a meeting just 2 days ago with an estate planner, and he was talking about planning our estate and things like that, and taxes, and just planning all of that stuff up front. And he was talking about the whole thing, and he drew all sorts of trees for me up until grandchildren and great grandchildren. And I said to him that I'm not meaning to be religious, or I don't know whether you believe in anything or anyone, but the Bible actually says that a good man plans. Is it plans or leaves an inheritance. Yeah, leaves an inheritance for his children,
for their children's children.
For the children's children, not the children. I mean, obviously, if you leave an inheritance for your children's children, true. And the Bible is so complete. And I think the Quran probably has the same, and other. When you start to think like a millionaire, you want to be thinking about not just for yourself, not just, and think about what they said about the working class, for example. When I was working, say, in a theater, when I was 18, 19, I'm working in a theater, 6 to 9 p.m. every day from school straight to the theater. Of course, I'd be thinking about next week, and maybe, I'm not even sure if I thought of a year. I mean, that was long, I was thinking about the following week, my £100 a week or £150 or whatever it was. That's what, so that's the only thing I could think about. So when the Bible is talking about leaving an inheritance for your children's children, actually, what the Bible didn't say that we should all know is that we needed to get there. And that getting there is what we're talking about. It's a process. So when you're working class, you would be planning for a week to a year, of course, because that's how much. For example, I was earning £100, £150. That's the only thing I could really plan for. Couldn't plan for longer than a year. Lower middle class, planning for time frame of a month to a decade. Yes, when I was there, that's what I could plan for, really. And then upper middle class for 20 years to to a lifetime. Well, that's kind of when which a lot of us are upper middle class, or still, upper middle class, or maybe just gone past it into upper class, and we're pretty much thinking about the next sort of 20 years and stuff. Kids going into college, how are we going to get money for them to get into university? How are they going to get paid for? What are we going to do after then? Okay, we're working now, but what happens when we stop working and we get retired? What kind of money are we leaving ourselves to live on until we eventually die? And then the upper class plans for their
world class. I'd rather call them world class.
Okay. Plans for their grandchildren's inheritance, because after having said all and done, now you've achieved financial independence, or about to achieve it, or achieved it already, but what's there to think about next? You already know where your day-to-day money is coming from. You don't have to worry about something happens to the fridge and then you can't replace it. That's not what you're worrying about, because you know that you'd be able to replace that. You'd be able to buy a new car when you want to buy a new car. You'll be able to change the carpet when you want to change it. But okay, so now, how much money do you really need then to survive? Okay, go on holiday, buy some, I don't know, happy things that make you happy. But then, okay, next. Okay. That's the millionaire mindset, where you're thinking about what happens next, your children, your grandchildren.
Okay. So what I would say is that that means God, because a lot of Christians, if you tell them, come become a millionaire, a lot of Christians probably will cringe to the idea, or with the idea. But I mean, when I think about money, because I'm a missionary evangelist, and I'm thinking about souls, so we do need whoever has, I did a podcast a while ago that whoever has the gold has the souls. So God says the gold and the silver are mine. So God put the gold and the silver here for his purposes, and that's why You know, kingdom wealth creation is about getting God's people, God's money into God's people's hands for God's purposes, you know. So if we aren't open to becoming wealthy, like God has said in his word, you know, that he's given us the power to create wealth. God himself is wealthy. God created a wealthy universe. You know, he put the gold and the silver in the earth for us, for our benefits. You know, we need to be open to that so that more of that can flow our way, so that we can flow it in the right direction. And even the Bible has told us how we need to allocate our money. You know, it's telling us that we need to plan for our children's children. So what that tells me is that God had it in mind for us to become wealthy, very rich, you know, even as the Bible tells us that Isaac prospered and became very prosperous. Abraham was prosperous. Solomon was prosperous. You know, David was prosperous. Joseph was prosperous. Daniel must have been prosperous, you know. So if we have all those people in scriptures who are prosperous, how much more us in our generation, and how much about women, you know, women, you know. So this is one of the reasons why we're sharing this, so that we can come against mindsets that are hindering a lot of believers and stopping us from getting into that place where God wants us to really be. So from what Grace has said there, that particular scripture tells us that it's God's plan for us to prosper. God says, it's my desire for you to prosper, even and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So he's even saying, yes, plan to the third generation, you know. And at the moment, we're all just planning what we can eat and what we can drink. Many people are afraid of there's a scripture that's coming to my mind now, but I'll come to it. But many people are afraid of retirement. They're not sure about what's going to happen much later. You know, even as, I mean, the scripture that came to my mind just now, but God was using it to talk about something else. He was saying, open your mouth and fill it. You know, if you open your life to the prosperity of God, God will fill you up. You know, he will fill your life up to overflowing. Even David says he creates a table. He lays a table before me in the presence of my enemies. He anoints my head with oil and my cup overflows. So I'm saying God's desire for you as a woman is for your cup to overflow, you know, and I believe that he will do that for you. So let's, yeah, so thank you very much. That was a very, very interesting analogy about the three different mindsets.
Thank you.
Yes, it was a very, very interesting one about those three different mindsets. I wanted you to repeat it again, but I don't think we have the time. So we'd have to go back on the recording to hear it again, you know, just to think about it, because it's worth thinking about it and then doing what is necessary to make sure we have the right mindset, because it's a mindset, you know. Mindset makes thinking, you're thinking 1 week ahead. You know, you're only thinking a month ahead or 10 years ahead. And somebody thinking 10 years ahead will think they're doing something great. But we're seeing that God has a bigger plan and God can do more for us than we can think or imagine. So God has great plans for us as women. That's a great thing to think about.
That's correct. And can I just add that also, you know, when you mentioned how a lot of Christians say that they don't want to be millionaires, they want to be just okay. Well, I always say, you know, and one of my mentors actually used to say this, that, you know, the poor don't need another poor person. The best thing you can do for the poor is not be poor yourself. Yes, because to help those people and achieve your purpose, your passion, you need money for it. It's not just it's not doable. I'm doing what I believe is my passion now. Sorry, is my purpose now. And there's just no way it can be done without money. But that money as well, you need to have enough to feed yourself, feed your family. You know, you guys need to be okay before you start thinking about spending money on that other, you know, passion of yours or your purpose. So it's not about wanting to just be a millionaire and just spend the money anyhow. I don't know, you know, how much money the millionaires around me, how much money are they spending? You know, just say what's the maximum amount of money that I can really spend. So the rest of the money, I use it for what I feel like using it for when I feel like it. That's what financial independence is. And my purpose in particular, your purpose in particular, you're going to need to spend money on it. And your purpose is what God has given to you to do. And that's part of being a good steward and actually spending that money on the things that you believe that God has given you to do.
Okay. Okay, we're running out of time, so we've got about a few minutes left. So I just wanted to ask if any of the ladies on the broadcast have or the live cast have any questions. If you have any questions, please you can ask them, and I'll just take one or two questions. You might need to type it in the message in the chat roll below. Any questions, ladies, before we move on? Okay, we haven't got a question coming up at the moment, so I'll go on to my next question. I mean, we have a lot more questions to discuss, but we haven't been able to cover them all. Maybe what we will do is to host probably another show and bring Grace back on, and we can then go into the rest of the questions that we had for this particular show. But yes, so one of the things I asked the ladies to do before we close on the show is to share one piece of information that they would like to leave with the ladies for tonight. Just one piece of information. If you only had one thing to say to the ladies tonight, what would that be?
It would be to say to ladies like me not to give up, not to ever give up. And the road might look, you might look ahead and not see the light at the end of the tunnel. You might think it's really hard. You might wonder what to do, where to start from. But the key is, again, another saying, I like using sayings a lot, but there's a saying that says that decide on where you want to go and you begin to see signposts leading there. So you just decide on what you want to do. The key thing is to make that decision and you know, starting to work out a plan to work towards it. You won't probably need some support from friends or family or people who have a little bit more experience than you that you can talk to, that believe in you and believe in your vision to support you on it. But it's really not to give up no matter what comes your way. You have to have this dogged determination that you're going to get what you're trying to do done. And most of the time, I believe it, you know, what's in our hearts is really what our purpose is to do. And just do not give up. Keep going, because it will happen. And it will happen actually easier in the end than you thought it will. Yes, it's hard work, but while doing the hard work, it suddenly clicks, you know, and you suddenly get to, you know, the results that you're trying to get to. You hear it from a client, from an accountant, from an estate planner and all, and you go, oh, wow. Okay, so what I started, you know, this number of years ago actually is working and was working, not because I didn't give up. So yeah, that's, please bear that in mind.
Okay. So we've got someone saying, yes, that's right. Hard work pays off when you're working in your purpose. That's very true. Yes, I totally agree with that, because we've got the grace to do certain things well, you know. So when you're working in your purpose and you work hard at your purpose, yes, it will really, really pay off. And I'm sure God is pleased with us when we do that. Okay, so we're going to just share with you how you can connect with us. Grace and I, like I mentioned earlier, are mastermind partners, and maybe Grace, maybe in a minute or so, you can just share the benefits. What have you found beneficial in that mastermind arrangement?
Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, I can say to you that I don't know. I mean, I was saying it just about, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I was like, how stupid that I was even trying to do all of these things on my own, not having anyone particularly to talk to. Of course, you know, you meet people at events, you know, you might want to speak to one person about something or another, but you can't speak to them forever. It's not like they're, you know, because they're only trying to help at the end of the day. And you can't call on people just when you feel like it, without some sort of reciprocation, you know. So, but since we started the mastermind, what I found is that I can, you know, want to ask a question, because, you know, sometimes there's some things, you know, but you just need to hear it from someone else, whether it's that what you're doing or what you've just put together is not actually the right thing, or it needs a tweak. You might not be able to put a finger on it, you know, that tweak, and you need somebody who has business experience as well, and who has been there, done that, got the t-shirt, to tell you what they think of it. Sometimes you need a fresh head to look at things, and being an entrepreneur can be a very lonely journey, but I believe being in a mastermind, you know, it accelerates you. And that's what I found for me, you know, talking to Davida and picking up the phone. It could be 12 a.m. at night or 1 a.m. just any time. You know, if I feel like I'm stuck, I'm calling on Davida. What do you think about this? And she might even say, well, we talked about it before. And I go, I know, but I just thought of something else and I'm no longer sure. Let's talk about it again. You know, so I think that just having somebody there to talk to is very, very key, and it gives you that support that you need to propel you forward. And that's what I found so far. So I'm very, very grateful to have met you today.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. But I would say that God himself is a mastermind. You know, masterminding is God's idea. We've got, at the beginning, God says, let us make man. So it's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. They thought they needed to mastermind to get their plans accomplished, you know. So how much more us, you know? God created Adam and Eve. He created a community so that they could multiply and do great things, have dominion over the earth. You know, Jesus didn't operate on his own, even though he could have, you know. So he still operated in that principle where he had people around him. He had all those disciples around him, and he's accomplished great things. Even he's still accomplishing great things today, you know. So even the fivefold ministry, you know, God gave the apostle, the prophet, the teacher, the evangelist. I think I'm missing one of them out. The teacher, I think, or the pastor, you know. So God's given those people to work together so that they can accomplish something great, you know. And so I believe that, you know, when we as believers come together, we can work together and get going, you know, have this community and get going. So what Grace and I have done is we've created a program. It's called Wealth Accelerate Mastermind, and it's a mastermind program. It will be a small group of women, 4 to 6 women, who would be meeting regularly once a month to bring their ideas and think strategically about those ideas, and helping the whole idea is that we help people, we help one another stay motivated and move ahead in the right direction as it relates to creating wealth and building our businesses. So Grace, do you have a few more things to say about that before we close?
Yeah, I'll just add that what I found as well is it's quite important to when you actually when you start creating a product, a book, a whatever it is, whatever service it is that's going out, it's quite important as well to actually get it checked over. And this is after actually, it's not just ideas now, it's actually having created it, someone to test it for you, not just look at it or just, oh, what do you think about this or what do you think about that, but somebody to actually take that product and test it for you. I think that is really key. And what I found is that a lot of the people who I know and a lot of the millionaires that I know, they didn't get there without having the support of other people who either knows a little bit more than them or has had the same amount of experience that they've had in business.
Okay. So what we're saying is we're inviting you, if you're interested in knowing more about this mastermind group, you can find more information on www.Kingdom Wealth Creation. And when you go to the website, on the top of at the top of the bar there's a link saying mastermind, and you can find out more information from there, if that is if you're beginning to think about moving forward and accelerating your God-given dreams, business, or even if it's accelerating your wealth creation program or process. So thank you for joining us. We've come to an end of our time. I know we had a bit of hiccups at the beginning. I'm just saying so sorry. And that's why we haven't been able to cover all the content that we planned to cover. But what I will do is we'll have another session of yes, woman, get a millionaire mindset, because I still think there's a lot more that we can discuss than we've already covered today. So I want to say thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you on the next program, which is later this month. Yeah, this particular session was actually one we planned. It was an impromptu one. It was a filler, you know. So we have our next show in about I think it's in about 2 weeks. So we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us once again, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, you're welcome, and thanks for coming. Yeah, so thank you, Valerie, Oremikpe. I can't seem to see the other names. Okay. But so thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you on the next show soon. Bye-bye. Bye for now.